The New York Knicks have been one of the worst teams in the NBA for the past decade. They haven't made the playoffs in 7 years, nor have they had even a winning season. They've had incredibly bad draft luck.
The 8th pick in the 2017 NBA draft, the New York Knicks select Frank Ntilikina. With the 9th pick in the 2018 NBA draft, the New York Knicks select Kevin Knox from the University of Kentucky.
And have missed out on several big-name free agents and have traded away key players. But that has the chance to change in this upcoming offseason. I see hope in the Knicks, but it really comes down to making the right decisions. So today, we're going to be looking at what I think the Knicks should do in the 2020 NBA offseason. Let's get into it. When looking at the 2020 offseason for the New York Knicks, you have to take a look at the staff, and especially the head coach. Just over 20 games into the NBA season, the Knicks fired their head coach, David Fizdale, after he was 4-18 this season.
Take that for data.
And people still wanted to defend him. So, we're going to look at some potential options. The first option is, of course, Mike Miller, the interim coach who filled in for David Fizdale when he was fired. So when you look at the pros of Mike Miller, you have to look and say he had moderate success with a very, very, very bad team. I mean, outside of R.J. Barrett and Mitchell Robinson, I really couldn't tell you who our next best player was. So he was able to win 17 games in 44 games with an awful Knicks team. Another thing people may like about Mike Miller is that it's a safe in-house hire for the Knicks. It's always good to stay within the organization when hiring a coach, as there's still familiarity there, and he doesn't have to take the time to meet the players and interact with them, and he knows their strengths and weaknesses, so I think that can be really beneficial for him. However, when you look at the cons of Mike Miller, he's never been a head coach before this year in his career, so he has a lack of experience, and that may hurt him. And in addition to that, his rotations were really, really bad when he was coaching the Knicks. I mean, he was giving Alonzo Trier no minutes, and Trier showed promise, guys like Ignas Brazdeikis, Damian Dotson, but instead he was playing Taj Gibson and freaking Reggie Bullock and Wayne Ellington. So I don't agree with his rotations, but I understand why he did it, because he was kind of fighting for his job, so rather than developing the players, he just wanted to try and win a few games to prove that he could be a head coach and maybe secure the job for the following season. But, I mean, for a rebuilding team, that's just inexcusable, so I'm not a big fan of his rotations. So moving on to the next coaching option is Jason Kidd. So when you look at the pros of Jason Kidd, he's a seasoned head coach. He's coached in several different places with several different players, and he's done okay. And, of course, the big thing when you look at Jason Kidd is that he has ties to Giannis, and he's the big free agent in 2021, and if him and Giannis have a really, really strong connection, and Giannis was extremely upset when Kidd left the Bucks, so I think maybe having Jason Kidd can try and bring him to the Knicks, which I would love. And another pro with Jason Kidd is the fact that he can mentor the young players off of his own player experience. He was phenomenal for the New Jersey Nets, which I hate to admit as a Knicks fan, but, he was really good, and I think that'll prove to be beneficial as a coach, as it already has for him in his career. But when you look at the cons for Jason Kidd, it really comes down to the fact that he couldn't get the Bucks with all that talent over the hump. I mean, with Giannis and Chris Middleton, granted they aren't what they are now, but I think he's partially to blame for that. So I don't like that when I look at Jason Kidd. That and the fact that he has a losing record as a head coach. He's 183 and 190. I want a head coach that has been proven to win and have success in the past. The last thing I want to mention about Jason Kidd is the fact that he's really stubborn and he's unwilling to adapt and change his ways. Many of his staff members and other players have come out and said this, and he really didn't get along too well with management. But when you look at the likelihood of Jason Kidd being the Knicks head coach of the 2020 NBA season, I think it's a very likely option, especially the ties to Giannis will play a huge factor in him coming to the Knicks, and I can definitely see him being our head coach. The next coach I want to take a look at is Kenny Atkinson. He develops players super well, and he didn't truly deserve to be fired with the Nets, as that whole situation was just really awkward. He completely turned that franchise around, and they were really nothing when he got there, so kudos to him for that. And hopefully, if the Knicks look to bring him in, he can do the same with our franchise, as we haven't been to the playoffs in 7 years. But some of the cons of Kenny Atkinson is that he still hasn't been a proven head coach, not a whole lot of winning experience, and he was fired from Brooklyn as a result of KD and Kyrie not getting along with him. So I want a coach that can really connect with the players and help them develop, not be a block for them. So I think that's a red flag when looking at Kenny Atkinson. But the Knicks are definitely going to look at him. I don't think he's one of the top options, but I think he's certainly an option. And the last coach I want to look at is Mark Jackson. He's experienced, and he helped build the foundation of that Warriors dynasty with Curry and Klay Thompson, and he's a winning head coach. He had a lot of success with the Warriors, and hopefully that translates to the Knicks if they look to hire him. But some of the cons are, of course, the controversy with the Warriors. He was never got along well with management, and there was that whole thing with Steph Curry when he was injured that he tried to get him, he took him to church and stuff, and a lot of people didn't like that. But personally, I don't think that's a huge deal, and I think that's kind of blown out of proportion. But he could never really get the Warriors over the hump, but he did do a great job in building that foundation, and I think he could really help the Knicks. And for that, I think he would be my top option for the Knicks to pursue as head coach, and I think he really turned this team around. But with all that staff talk out of the way, let's move to the draft. The Knicks currently have the 6th best odds to win the lottery, and based on a lottery simulation of our own, the Knicks finished with the 3rd pick and the 30th pick due to the Clippers. So the top options are, of course, Anthony Edwards, but he'll likely go number 1, and I want to look to bring in a point guard like LaMelo Ball or Cole Anthony. And since the Ball family has come out and said LaMelo wants to be a Knick and they want him to be a Knick, I would like to have LaMelo Ball. And I understand he's a risk, but his ceiling is just huge. So I think if we were to take him, it's worth the risk. And he'll get the garden buzzing again, which is exactly what the Knicks need. At pick 30, there are a lot of potential options. The Knicks could go, of course, but I think they should probably look to bring in a forward or a center with lots of potential. Now, I know we have Mitch, but we could definitely use a power forward. And, of course, a small forward. That position's a mess. But I think it's worth looking at guys like Vernon Carey or Isaiah Stewart, depending on who is available, of course, as that's just so tough to predict. Moving on to the team player options. Now, the Knicks have quite a few, and it's Elfrid Payton for $8 million, and I would look to decline him. The Knicks just drafted their point guard of the future with LaMelo Ball, and they still have a solid point guard off the bench with Frank Ntilikina. There's just no need for Elfrid anymore on the team. And for Taj Gibson, for about $9.5 million, it's not worth bringing him back for that much money. I would definitely decline Taj Gibson. Same thing for Bobby Portis. $16 million, too much money. He's just not worth it. Reggie Bullock and Wayne Ellington are the last two, for $4 million and $8 million respectively. I would look to decline both of them, as they're both, as Reggie's approaching 30 and Wayne Ellington is 32 years old. I don't think they're worth the money, and they're very replaceable. They're just really shooters. I don't think there's any need for them on this team for that money, and I would like to save some money for free agency. Now, when looking at free agency, the qualifying offers I would give to Alonzo Trier, Damian Dotson, and Kenny Wooden, as they're all still young, and I think they're worth taking a look at. Now, Trier, I would like no more than $7 million, and even that's a stretch because he's still really unproven. And for Dot, I would look to spend in the $2 to $3 million range, and Kenny the $1 to $2 million, which I think are cheap for good, young, promising players. When looking at the big name free agents, I don't think the Knicks are in a position to get any of those guys, nor do I think they should. I just don't think we're a win-now team. I think we should build towards the future. So I think the two top options we should look at would be Christian Wood and Danilo Gallinari. Now, Gallinari is the better player at the moment, but Wood fits the timeline and will be better in the long term. And he's still a good player and still has room to grow. He's young. Therefore, I feel like the Knicks should sign Christian Wood to a 2-year deal with a 3rd-year team option, worth about $15 million a year. The Knicks also signed Bogdan Bogdanovic.
Wow, that's not how we pronounce how do we pronounce his name? So it's Bogdan, not Baghdad.
To a 1+1 deal, $14 million a year. I'm sorry if I butchered that name. You will learn very quickly I suck at that. I think Bogdan will be a great sixth man for the Knicks who can bring a spark off the bench. I don't think he brings a starting role to this team with RJ, but I think it's a very nice signing. And of course, I'm not going to go over every single free agent, but just know that there are others, and those are the only two real big ones that I think the Knicks should bring in. As for the trades we should make in the offseason, I think the Knicks have to get rid of Julius Randle. He's a mess. He can't handle the ball. He thinks he's a point guard. He's not a team player. He's a ball stopper. That's all he is. So I think we should look to trade him to a team like the Timberwolves for guys like Josh Okogie and Naz Reid. They're both young and still have potential, and they could both make an impact off the bench or maybe even start one day. And I think Randle to the T-Wolves for this sort of asking price, it makes a lot of sense, as the T-Wolves have D'Lo, Cat, and now Julius Randle. They're looking to make a playoff push, and Randle on the right team can be good. He was trying to do too much with the Knicks, so I think he's a good fit for the T-Wolves, and I think this trade makes a lot of sense. Only other trade during the offseason, I want the Knicks to get rid of Kevin Knox and Dennis Smith Jr., and I think we should look to flip them for a guy like Justice Winslow. Although Winslow is a bit overpaid, he has a team option, so we could easily decline him next year. And he can still come in and play a few minutes at small forward and maybe even start. I think he's got some promise, maybe off the bench, maybe as a starter. I think it's a nice role for this team, and I just don't see either Kevin Knox or Dennis Smith Jr. in our future plans. So that brings us to the final thing for the offseason, and I think the Knicks are desperate for a rebrand. So right now on the screen is a Rebrand brand we came across, and I really like it. I always wanted the Knicks to do something with the skyline, and I think this is a really nice look for the Knicks. We have to get that bad taste of the last 7 years out of our mouths. So this is a must. So yeah, going into the 2020-21 NBA season, the Knicks starters look like this: LaMelo Ball at point guard, RJ Barrett at shooting guard, Justice Winslow at small forward, Christian Wood at power forward, and Mitchell Robinson at center. Bogdan Bogdanovic will be the sixth man, with Trier, Josh Okogie, Vernon Carey, and Frank Ntilikina all being the main guys off the bench. Of course, Naz Reid and Ignas Brazdeikis are there as well, but they'll probably spend some time developing in the G League and coming in and out of getting minutes or not, you know? So that does it. I mean, clearly the Knicks are. This isn't a championship team we're building. We're building towards the future. I don't even know if this is a playoff team, but it's got a lot of promise and a lot of young players, and I think this is the direction the Knicks need to go. I don't want to sign veterans like we did last season with guys like Taj Gibson and Wayne Ellington. That's not what we need. We need to stay young, and we need to build this team for the future. And look, maybe in 2021, maybe we get a big free agent, but I think this is the way to build the team the right way. So I hope you enjoyed, and as always, hit the like button, please give us a subscribe, and leave a comment, your thoughts, what you would do for the Knicks, and what you want to see in future videos. We appreciate all your support. The few seconds it takes you guys to do these things, it helps us out a ton. So yeah, you know the drill. That does it. We'll see you next time.